like to welcome everybody, all of us, to this meeting. Um, I want to really appreciate your coming. When the chairman talked to me about this, I initially said, but you know, we're out of town. He said, that's not a problem. But here you are in full force. So I really appreciate and thank all of you. Our profession is a very unique one, and I believe that this meeting and all the discussions we've been having is only aimed at making us to realize again who we are, reminding us of who we are, and then hopefully that helps us to improve on our professional practice as we all struggle to survive in this competing world. Yeah, so the topic of the presentation is it's about artificial intelligence and other emerging technology applications in urban agriculture for sustainable food production. And we didn't just select this topic anyhow. We selected this topic because we think it is something that should concern all of us. All of us, I mean, not only agric engineers, but even those who are not agric engineers, engineers, non-engineers. In fact, we know that the best practitioners of urban agriculture, actually, they are neither engineers nor agriculturists. Some of them are people from different professional backgrounds. And you will find that what we are going to discuss is just to enlighten you on what can be done. One of the problems we have in this country is that I think one white man.
Recording in progress.
Somebody in Canada told me this around 1987 or 88 when I was doing my PhD in Canada. He asked me this question. He said, how come Nigerians know their problems, but they cannot solve the problems? And I think it was, we had a lecture by one of the frontline politicians in the First Republic, one Dr. Ikejani. These were the people who worked with Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe in those days. He's now, at that time, he was now relocated to Canada. So the man gave us a wonderful lecture in an audience mix like this. And at the end of it, the white man that I invited asked me, you people seem to understand your problems, but how come you are not able to solve your problem? So that you know that our problems didn't start today. Sometimes the younger generation think that Nigerian problems just started. No, problems have always been there, but the problem we have is our inability to, first of all, understand those problems and then translate from those problems, look for solutions. Many times we notice that we see problems on a day-to-day basis, and these problems are actually challenges that we should confront. And in most cases, you will find that in solving those challenges, in confronting those challenges, we come up with solutions, which eventually leads to wealth, leads to success, leads to. But one of the things I've seen in my little sojourn on this earth is that we are seeing challenges on a day-to-day basis, and unknown to us, if we find solutions to these challenges, those solutions will lead to what? Business, will lead to money. But in many cases, we think that we just define these things as problems. But actually, there are challenges that we should be looking for solutions. So if you look at this topic, it's talking about urban agriculture and then talking about sustainable food production. What do we understand by sustainable food production? That is part of what we are going to learn today. And then what is urban agriculture? How do we deal with urban agriculture? Is it really necessary? And then today, we are seeing technologies on a daily basis. Whether we like it or not, new and newer technologies are coming. if you go to AI that we are going to talk about, even as an old man, an old professor, I had to teach myself, I had to learn about the technology of AI, especially the usefulness in teaching and research. But even while I was trying to learn how to use a chat GPT very well, I'm being told that more and more are even coming out to. In fact, somebody told me a few weeks ago that this thing I'm trying to learn how to do something in Chat GPT, that I should migrate to a newer version or a newer AI tool that will do this thing better than what I can do with Chat GPT. So technology is evolving. And one of the things I ask myself, where are we as Africans, even in the development of these technologies? I think we are mostly in the area of consumption. The very smart ones, the people we define as being smart, they are very good in ensuring that any technology that comes out, they are able to grasp it and use it. But that is only one level of technology. The next level, or rather the next level is our ability to contribute towards the development of those technologies. And so we're going to look at those emerging technologies, and AI is only one out of a number of emerging technologies. And then what are their benefits? What are the challenges? Why are we not able to contribute towards the development of those technologies? And then, of course, we'll just highlight some case studies, and then we look at the future. How do we transform from being just passengers in these technologies, but moving towards a situation where we can contribute towards development and the use of these technologies? It looks like. So move on. We start with sustainable food production. If you look at our environment, the environment called Nigeria, both at the national and subnational levels. And it's important that we situate this properly. I once told one of my friends who was the governor at the time, I said, look, let us see Nigeria as having a national level and then subnational levels. We don't really understand it. And that is why a governor, which state is the smallest state in Nigeria in terms of size and population?
Bayelsa.
Maybe Bayelsa. So sometimes we say if you take Bayelsa, you can fit 10 Bayelsa in one other state in Nigeria, and it will fit. But that Bayelsa, as small as it is probably bigger than a number of countries in Africa. The 54 countries in Africa, Bayelsa is bigger than some of them in terms of resources, in terms of landmass, in terms of whatever you can think of. So, but you notice that our governors are not even looking at their states as subnationals. In other words, a governor, if they think, this is what I was discussing with my friend, if they think about it, that state you call a small state is actually equivalent to another small African country. I mean, a number of you, I'm sure you've traveled to some of these West African countries, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Gambia. Gambia is even smaller than FCT. Yeah, so our governors need to begin to think in this direction. So Nigeria is big and we are growing. So there is increase in population. Even though we cry that some of the things that Bill Gates and others are doing, they're trying to reduce our population. But we decided that we cannot. So this increase is there and it will continue. In fact, I don't know our position now in terms of the world population, but the prediction is that in the next 50 to 100 years, Nigeria will feature as one of the third. If you look at the hierarchy, maybe one of the 5 most populous countries in the world. So that is real. And then you can see, as population is increasing, what we follow? Demand for food. Today, we are seeing the impact, we are seeing the problem that feeding ourselves is actually becoming a problem. When I lived in North America some years back, in Canada, in the US, you don't think about feeding. You don't worry about budgeting for food because food is there and cheap. So everybody fits well in terms of having the right quantity of food and also the quality in terms of nutrition. But look at what is happening to us today. We used to be able to feed ourselves, but you see the challenges we have, security challenges. Sometimes we talk about this farmers' headers issue and we think it's, except when it touches you. Last week or this week, it happened again in Bokos in Plateau. It has happened in Benue. It's all over. And sometimes we tend to think that it's just a political problem. But you see, it affects everything that we do. And that is why food is becoming expensive. Poor infrastructure for even moving the produce. I don't know if any of us visits any of these markets around where people buy food in bulk. Places like Day. Yeah, I don't know that one. That's another one. I hear there's another one. I think that's the one my wife goes, Orange Market or somewhere. But the only reason why I know, even though I'm an agric engineer, is that any day she goes to that market, I know that I can have fruits in abundance. So, but the infrastructure for moving these things from where they are to the cities is becoming a problem. But what is the solution? The solution to tackling our increase in population and all these challenges is, of course, first of all, to remove the challenges if we can, but also to look for improved yield per unit area. And that's why we're engineers, we're agriculturists. So if you normally require 1 hectare to grow food, a certain quantity of food, one solution is to say, can we reduce the area? In fact, in a room like this, you can grow tomatoes that you would have ordinarily grown in a big field, as big as a football field. So, and I believe that Nigeria is working on this, and that's why we have research institutes coming up with improved varieties. So you can actually grow more food per smaller area. And then functional post-harvest systems. If you visit some of these village markets around us that I mentioned, you'll be amazed at the quantity of food that is wasted because they can't sell them and the thing just gets rotten. So post-harvest system is a problem. And then, of course, another major solution that we can have is to bring more land under production, under cultivation. This can be done in our normal rural areas, but that is where urban agriculture comes in. Ordinarily, when you are within the city, we all say that farming is a dirty business. We are busy chasing money everywhere. But urban agriculture is important, and those that are developed in developed economies, they recognize that we can satisfy part of our food needs by embarking in urban agriculture. And it is selected as a special area because ordinarily you don't farm within cities. Cities are for, you cut down, destroy farms and then build. But what was happening in Africa, they will come and change it, and then later they come back and begin to tell us to return back to what we were doing. It happens with climate change, happens with agricultural production. Before, our forefathers and foremothers, they know about shifting cultivation. They know that you don't farm on a particular piece of land every year. In fact, as a child, I experienced it. In some parts of the, in a particular year, we are farming in one area of our land. But when modern agriculture came, we started doing intensive cultivation. So on the same land, you are farming every year. Of course, we say support with fertilizer and so on. But now that we are moving towards organic farming and sustainability issues, we are now returning back to what used to happen, where you use natural means to reinvigorate the soil by not continuously farming on it. So urban agriculture has come to help. And what is it all about? And it's important that we understand what we mean by urban agriculture. There are certain farming methods that you cannot practice in the city. But there are some things that are really suited for city farming. One is horticulture. And that means you want to grow things, not just for food. You can grow ornamentals. I don't know if you saw this. There was a time this was beamed, the kind of money that a country like Kenya makes from exporting flowers to Europe. It sounds maybe social media hype, but it is not. People grow flowers and export. Because even though we are all enjoying plastic flowers, there are still people who prefer natural flowers and they can't grow them in their environment. So those who are smart run businesses growing ornamental crops, growing flowers, and exporting them. Medicinal plants. I think it was mentioned that I was once a DJ of raw material. At some point while I was DJ, I got an invitation by the Chinese Ministry of Science and Technology to spend 3 weeks to study medicinal plants in China. And it was amazing. What I gained from that, I mean, those who were following what I was doing then, it was after that that I started promoting moringa. If anybody was, following when we were promoting moringa crop, medicinal plants, yeah, thank you. Yeah, just in case. Yeah. So, medicinal plants, what I saw in China was amazing. In fact, while that training was going on, I think the second week, one of us went down with cold. And it happened to be one of these. That time, viruses were not very popular, but this lady actually came down with, sneezing, running, and then they were saying there was an issue with, I can't remember what that virus was. So they immediately quarantined her. We were like a group like this, and incidentally, within 2-3 days of our coming together, I had become her father, so to say. Anywhere you see me, I see she will come and sit near me. Reason was that she's an addict of African magic at the time. I'm sure African magic is still popular. So the first day we did that, we started that conference. The Chinese people came to me and said, "You seem to be the oldest person in this, people from different African countries. And we hear you are from Nigeria." I say, "Yes." He said, "Did you come with any of your traditional?" I say, "Yes, I have one." He said, "Which one?" I say, "From the East." He said, "That's the one they want. That I'll be the one to speak on behalf of the participants." So during the opening ceremony, I was in my attire with my red cap. And so immediately after that, when we were taking pictures, this lady came to me and hugged me and said, "You are now my father from today." That she has been watching African magic. He said, "Are you Igwe or?" Anyway, she's from St. Lucia or something, yeah. She's actually a pharmacist, the chief pharmacist of their general hospital. So anyway, she came down with this virus and she was quarantined. And when I came back that evening, I said, "Where is," trying to remember her name. They said, "She's been quarantined." The Chinese officials, health officials came and quarantined her. That they are still trying to find out the kind of virus she has. I say, "What? That nobody should go to her room." I say, "You people are joking. I'm a Nigerian. I'll enter her room." I went to her room. When the hotel people heard that I was there, they came and said I must leave. I said, "I can't leave. Look, we don't do this in Africa. She's sick, she's sick. All of us might as well be." They say, "No, you will catch it and spread it." I say, "No, I won't catch it." Anyway, I remember this story because of medicinal plants. They found the following day, they came and said, "No, it's not that international virus, that it's a local virus." And they were going to take her to a Chinese hospital. So she was a little scared. I said, "No, I will accompany you." And we went. It was a teaching hospital, Chinese version. So I asked questions. They said they have teaching hospitals, Orthodox, the one we have around us, and teaching hospital, Chinese. And in that teaching hospital, Chinese, they only use medicinal plants. And I tell you, by the time we came back and they boiled the roots and all the things they gave her, and she started doing steaming. By the following morning, the symptoms disappeared. I say, you see, if you are taking the orthodox medicine that you are familiar with as a pharmacist, it will take 3-4 days before the virus can go. So medicinal plants are important, and Chinese people have developed this into businesses. So fruits, vegetables, livestock, fishery, these are the kind of agricultural practices we can have. So there are different, this is just to give you an example of what urban agriculture is all about. And I'm sure we can find even good pictures all around us where you have high-rise buildings in front of them or around them or within them, you have agriculture going on. Next. So you can do smart farm produce. Remember that agriculture is not just about farming. Sometimes we confuse this. Agriculture is the entire value chain from preparing the land, planting, down to what? When the food lands on our table, either in its natural form or in a processed form. That is the entire value chain for agriculture. And so, smart farm produce distribution is something that can be practiced within our cities. Farmers markets, I'm sure we have a few of them, which is important. Agro-processing systems, cold chain management, this is still one of the problems we have. I did my PhD in Canada, and I tell you, they don't produce banana in Canada. It doesn't grow. So, I mean, half of the year, the place is frozen anyway. All the banana they eat come from Caribbean islands, and they arrive Canada green. But how are they able to manage them? Through cold chain management systems. And these systems are provided by young professionals, not those farmers in the villages, but young professionals who take those farm produce and make sure that all year round, even the 6 months that is winter, that if you look through the window, everywhere is white with snow. You still go to the supermarket and you find fresh banana, fresh whatever fruit that they have. Smart greenhouses. Smart greenhouses, I don't know if anybody here is in the business. Is anybody here in the business of greenhouses? It's an area that we are missing, even as agri-engineers. What greenhouses mean is that thing you can grow in a big field. You can actually do a greenhouse as small as this, and you can produce the kind of things that you want within a controlled environment. And that's where AI comes in, because it means you can monitor the environment, you can control the environment, and you can then use improved varieties to produce. Farming in waterways. If you look around us within Abuja, you notice that the waterways are taken over by what? Garden, thank you. That's where we eat and drink. But those waterways can actually be areas for farming, in addition to what we are doing. But I don't think we've thought about it, or maybe there are no professionals that have actually worked on this to ensure that we can also grow food, because those waterways are natural environments for irrigation. But what we are doing now is turning them into drinking places and eating places, forgetting about where we produce. We need to produce those things we eat. Next. So what are these two slides are just giving you possible opportunities in urban agriculture, which I believe. So what are the benefits? We've already talked about the benefits. It can increase food production. It can ensure resilience in our food production system, sustainable supply. But now that we are all talking about climate change, you see, every year when there is a COP, I think the last one is COP what? Who attended the last?
16 in Riyadh. 16 in Riyadh.
Okay, the next one is coming, and every Nigerian wants to go. Every government agency is now involved in. But the carbon footprint is something that we have not even understood, talk less benefiting from it. Okay, but urban agriculture can contribute to that very seriously. Next one. I once visited, I think it was on the trip I told you the story about. I visited a city in, I think it's an island or so. It's called the Coconut City. And if you are driving through the streets, you see all these ornamentals that we have. Abuja is doing well, but I know I've confronted those responsible. I was trying to change the policy of not using only ornamentals along our roads, but using fruits. And they said, no, 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 it's a policy that we can't do this. I say, look, I have an NGO, I even want to, don't pay for it, but I want to replace these ornamental trees with fruit trees. They say, no, it's impossible, that's policy of FCDA. But I went to this city in China, and they call it Coconut City. Every road, right and left, you have trees. Anyway, that's their concept. You have the road, you have the walkway or sidewalk. What do they call it in civil engineering? Eh? Yeah, the ones for pedestrians. And then you have trees separating the road from the street, the buildings. Of course, those trees absorb all kinds of things that come from vehicles, including noise, pollution. So it's intentional. But in this particular city, instead of using ornamentals, they use coconut. So all over the city is all coconut. Of course, improve variety. Now, what that means is that the kind of thing you see around Badagry and some of these West African countries, under the heat, because it's a tropical city in China, everybody is drinking, you know what I'm talking about, coconut water. And again, you now have so many things that come out, business that come out from that coconut, either converting the fiber, the biomass to something, and so on and so forth. But anyway, this is something that policy can do. Now, having identified these possibilities in urban agriculture, how can technology help? And you can see that we can easily identify a number of technologies, and it's important that we understand this. If you were in school at the time I was in school, I left, my bachelor's degree was 1982. There was nothing like this. So we think that these things are not new, they are actually new. Artificial intelligence, I only started hearing about this a few years ago. When I was in school, there was nothing like artificial intelligence. We were battling with Fortran. Who wrote codes in Fortran? You did? You don't look old enough, but but I know. Okay, okay, yeah, you understand what I'm talking about. The regression analysis I did for my master's project, I wrote it in Fortran and using cards. After writing them, the code in cards, then I went and submitted the cards at the computer center at Nsukka. And then 2-3 weeks later, the printout will come out. Then you start interpreting them, and that's how I did my regression. But I published a paper from it. But today, when I talk to students that you don't know what technology has done for you, today is not only that we have spreadsheets that can do regression analysis, now we have artificial intelligence that can look at historical data and even give you models. And once you train it, it can do. So if you haven't taken a course on AI, I recommend as an agric engineer, please take a course. I started with a free online course on AI. At some point, I had to respect myself when they when they started the very advanced ones. But at least the free course I took from Coursera and some of these now made me to understand what my own conclusion is actually, this is actually advanced regression analysis. Once you have good historical data, you can train the model, develop the model, train it, and then it can predict into the future. So AI has come, Internet of Things, vertical farming, for those of us that we are in agriculture. So we need to understand what vertical farming means. Hydroponics, aeroponics, we've always been taught that, I think in primary or secondary school, we've been taught that for you to grow crop, you must plant in the soil. But you can, now we have hydroponics, we have aeroponics, growing food or crops without soil. Whether you are growing in water, that's hydroponics. And then even in ordinary air, is aeroponics. Then you have drones. And these things are, but these emerging technologies are very important for us. And it is real that many of us study agric engineering and we shy away from practicing in agriculture, isn't it? But with these modern technologies, you can actually practice because these are supported by technology. Imagine coming up with a business of providing drone technology for farmers. Before now, not many farmers will listen to you, but now you can actually have clients that you can deal with their pest problems, their disease problems using drones, robotics for processing, and then the big one, blockchain, issues of traceability. That's where blockchain came up. It's very useful. I remember some years back, I don't know what has happened. There was some traction or some movement in the area of commodity exchanges. I don't know whether they are still functional or I know that Nigeria, we hardly sustain something where you can actually have commodity exchanges, just like you have um, money exchange systems. I don't know those of us in in Ministry of Agri, if that program is still on. But this is where blockchain comes in. What that means is that you can actually market your commodities using blockchain. And when I talk about marketing, not only in Nigeria, but even outside Nigeria. Then smart processing and distribution systems. Our distribution system is very, very chaotic. We don't actually have any system. If you like, do a study now on food distribution systems in Abuja. You will notice there is no pattern. But this is an opportunity for business. Where do the supermarkets get their supplies? You will find that it is anyhow, anybody, that can approach them and convince them. But it is something that can have value if we think about companies that can develop these technologies, even if you don't develop, acquire these technologies and provide them as services. So, and these will come in different kinds of solutions. Digital solutions for agriculture include digital procurement, ensuring that procurement systems are smart. Agric e-commerce, I'm sure some of us here are in the business of selling agricultural commodities and products using e-commerce. Smart farming, we've already talked about. Digital information services. If you want to get any data or information on agricultural services in Nigeria, how easy have you ever thought of how easy it is for you to get real data, real information that can help you in farming? And when we are talking about farming, we are talking about crops, we are talking about livestock, fisheries, and so on. You have to really locate the expert wherever he is. But in today's world with technology, we know that people should be able to provide these services. Weather and climate services, digital finance, which is actually the very interesting one where many of the agri-techs go to. How do you develop financial solutions that can support agriculture?